Level 1, the candidate. You fill out the form on the CIA's website like it's a job posting because as far as you can tell, it is. Name, education, 3 languages you barely remember from college. You click submit and hear nothing for 5 months. Then an email arrives, unsigned, asking you to fly to Virginia at your own expense. No reimbursement, no explanation, just a date and a time. Here's the part nobody warns you about. The waiting is deliberate. They want to see who shows up anyway. The building is beige and forgettable. The kind of place you'd drive past without noticing. Fluorescent lights buzzing over carpet the color of nothing in particular. A man in a gray suit asks you questions for 3 hours straight. No bathroom breaks offered, none requested. Where did you grow up? Have you ever been arrested? Have you ever lied to someone who trusted you? The questions feel random. They aren't. Every answer is being cross-checked against the last 20, hunting for the seam where your story doesn't quite match itself. Then comes the polygraph, a strap across your chest, a cuff tightening on your arm until your fingers go numb, a man behind a machine whose face gives you nothing. A polygraph examiner named Marcus Wren doesn't raise his voice once. The machine doesn't catch liars, he tells you, not looking up from the readout. It catches people who don't know they're lying to themselves yet. You will. You don't understand what he means. You will. Under the pressure of that silent room, you confess things you'd buried so deep you forgot they were yours. A stolen exam in 10th grade. A friend you let take the blame for something you both knew was your fault. None of it matters to the case. All of it matters to Wren, because now he knows exactly how you break, and he writes it down without a word. 3 weeks later, a letter arrives. You've been accepted into the clandestine service trainee program. You read it 4 times before you believe it's real. Level 2, the initiate. They send you to a fenced compound in the Virginia woods that isn't on any public map. The kind of place the government insists is a research facility, and everyone quietly knows isn't. Officially, it doesn't have a name. Unofficially, everyone calls it the farm. Mornings start before the sun, a 5-mile run through fog so thick you taste it, followed by a breakfast eaten in under 6 minutes, because the schedule doesn't bend for anyone. You spend your days learning tradecraft, the CIA's word for the skills of not existing. How to spot a surveillance team without looking like you're looking. How to lose a tail inside a department store. Escalator to the 3rd floor, through the fitting rooms, out the loading dock. Gone in 90 seconds while the car behind you is still circling the block. How to pick a deadbolt in the dark and slide a document back into a folder exactly where you found it, down to the angle of the paperclip. Your instructor, a woman named Elena Cho with 2 artificial fingers from an operation she never discusses, teaches the part that isn't in any recruitment brochure. How to recruit an asset, the agency's word for convincing another human being to betray their country. Everyone breaks along the same 4 lines, she says, writing them on a whiteboard nobody's allowed to photograph. Money, ideology, coercion, ego, find the crack, and the whole person opens. Here's the twist most candidates don't see coming. The hardest part isn't learning to spot a lie, it's learning to become an excellent one yourself, on command, without flinching. You run mock operations against instructors playing foreign intelligence officers. Get caught too many times and you're gone by morning, your bunk stripped before breakfast, your name never mentioned again. 40% of your class doesn't make it to the end. The survivors aren't the smartest people in the room. They're the ones who can do something unforgivable at 9 a.m. and sit down to dinner at 6. Like nothing happened. You graduate in the top of your class. They hand you a badge and a cover story. Your real career starts now, and nothing about the last 5 months prepared you for how ordinary the next part looks from the outside. Level 3, the handler. Your first posting is an embassy in a country still shaped by a wall that came down before you were born. On paper, you're a junior political officer, name on a diplomatic list, invited to receptions with warm champagne and colder small talk. In reality, every handshake at every reception is an evaluation nobody else in the room knows is happening. You spend 8 months on a single target, A mid-level ministry clerk with access to cables you want, and a gambling debt he can't mention to his wife. You don't approach him directly. That's the mistake every rookie makes. And it's the mistake that ends careers before they start. You become the friend who's just there at the card table, the one who quietly covers a bad night, then another, until the number is $50,000 he will never be able to repay honestly. Neither of you says that number out loud. You don't have to. Your station chief, a woman named Renata Voss, who has run assets on 3 continents, watches you build it from a distance and only steps in once. Don't rescue him, she tells you, over coffee that's gone cold. The moment you make his life easier, you lose him. Let the debt do the work you're too polite to do yourself. You listen, and it costs you something you don't have a name for yet. In month 8, you ask him for a small favor, some internal memos, nothing that matters. You tell him. He believes you, or lets himself. He hands them over with hands that won't stop moving. And you realize this is the moment his whole life quietly changes direction without him choosing it. You have your first asset. You eat dinner at the embassy that night and feel almost nothing, which frightens you more than feeling something would have. Level 4, the cover. Most officers work under official cover, a diplomat's badge, an embassy to run to if things go wrong, expulsion instead of prison if you're caught. You're offered something else. Non-official cover. No badge, no embassy, no government fingerprint anywhere near you. If you're caught, the United States will deny you exist because on paper you don't. You say yes anyway, and here's the part that should scare you more than it does at the time. They build you a legend, a consulting job at a firm that does no real consulting, an apartment with mail addressed to a name that isn't yours, a girlfriend who thinks you travel too much, parents who think you left government work years ago and never ask follow-up questions because you've trained them not to. Your handler, a woman you know only by the name Iris, meets you exactly twice a year, always somewhere with 3 exits and a clear line to the door. The danger was never getting caught, she tells you once, in a parking garage that smells like rain and concrete. The danger is that one morning you'll wake up and not remember which version of you is supposed to answer the phone. You sleep with a second passport under the mattress. You vary your route home so precisely you could draw the pattern from memory without thinking about it. There's no one alive who knows both your real name and where you are tonight. That thought used to scare you. Somewhere in this level, it stops. And that's the moment you should have been most afraid, except by then you weren't anymore. Level 5, the operator. A close call in a city you won't name pulls you out of cover work. A parked car that lingered one turn too many. A camera lens that caught light on the 3rd floor when it shouldn't have. Nothing happened. Something almost did. And almost is enough to end a career or a life. They offer you a different track, special activities, where the work stops being about lies and starts being about direct action. 6 more months of training, run by men who used to be Delta or SEAL Team 6, and don't care how well you recruit an asset, only whether you can clear a room without getting your team killed. Your instructor, a broad, quiet man named Thomas Reyes, spends a week putting you through a mock captivity exercise designed to teach you what it feels like before it happens for real. So the first time isn't the worst time. Everyone thinks the hard part is the pain, he tells you afterward, not unkindly. The hard part is deciding alone, in the dark, who you still are. Your first deployment is 3 months in a compound that isn't on any official map, watching a screen while a strike turns a building into a crater half a world away. Sometimes the coordinates are right. Once they're off by 200 meters and you learn what that costs in a language you never wanted to speak and can't unlearn. There's a medal for what you did over there. It has no name on it and no record it was ever given. And somehow that absence feels heavier than if it didn't exist at all. Level 6, the commander. 5 years in, and they put 8 operators under your command and your name on the mission. You're responsible for the objective. You're responsible for whether all 8 of them go home, and that weight doesn't announce itself until the first time it's tested. Your team is sent into a country collapsing in real time to find and destroy chemical weapons, stockpiles the official reports insist don't exist. 6 weeks of 2-hour sleep cycles in safe houses that rotate every 2 days, paying informants who might be telling the truth or might be selling you to 3 different militias at once. You never fully know which, and that uncertainty becomes its own kind of exhaustion. You find the stockpiles, 15 tons, rigged and burned in place, black smoke rising while you pray the wind holds. On the last night, your convoy is hit on a side street you'd cleared an hour earlier. 2 of your men go down. You carry one of them half a mile on your back while rounds crack past your head, counting his breaths instead of your own. One survives, one doesn't. Your division chief, a gray, exhausted man named Gerald Ashcroft, helps you write the letter to the widow. We use the word sacrifice, he tells you, capping his pen. It's not a lie. It's just the only word we're allowed to use. The letter says nothing about the side street, or the half mile, or the weight of a man who used to talk about his kids on every op. The family frames it anyway, and you think about that more than you expected to. Level 7, the senior officer. 15 years in the field leave your body older than your file says you are, a shoulder that won't sit right, a permanent ring in your left ear from a room you're not permitted to name. They bring you into a station of your own, the senior officer in an entire country, 40 officers and hundreds of assets running through your desk every single day. Every morning starts with the ambassador and ends past midnight with intelligence services who are sometimes allies and sometimes assets you recruited a decade ago now running their own game against you without either side saying so. You walk past the memorial wall at Langley some mornings before all of this. Rows of stars with no names carved beneath them. And you never quite let yourself finish that thought. Your predecessor, a composed woman named Diane Whitfield, hands you the job with one piece of advice on your first morning as chief. When they ask you questions in that closed session, she says, nodding toward the building, give them answers that are true and incomplete. That's not a lie. That's the job Wren tried to warn you about, back at the very beginning, before you knew what he meant. You remember Wren's voice from 15 years ago? The machine doesn't catch liars. It catches people who don't know they're lying to themselves yet. And for the first time, you understand exactly what he meant, because somewhere along the way, you became the answer to his sentence. You authorize the operation that defines your career, watching it unfold from a radio and a chair instead of a doorway, holding lives in your hands from 4,000 miles away and a headset that won't stop crackling. It ends clean. This time, somewhere back at Langley, in a room you remember too well, a 22-year-old is filling out a form on the CIA's website, certain they know exactly what they're signing up for. They don't. You didn't either. If this changed how you think about what the job actually costs, not the missions, but the person underneath them, tell me which level you want broken all the way down next. Drop it in the comments.